Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate coming at you to review a movie which when I reviewed Home Alone 2 I think I said I never had any plans on seeing any of these other movies, but I ended up finding Home Alone 3 for $2, so can't remember when I found it. Probably, yeah, I don't know. This year. So I found Home Alone 3 maybe in October on DVD, and I'm like, well, since I reviewed 1 and 2, and me and Matt have reviewed 1 and I reviewed 2, why not just, if, since I found 3, and it was this time of year, buy 3 for $2 and review it. I didn't know, and then after I bought it, I'm like, well, maybe it's not even like a holiday, movie or whatever. And then, so I actually watched this last night, and what the funny thing is, on the cover here, it says from good old Roger Ebert, better than the first two, which, obviously for like I think this was a straight-to-video movie, for a third sequel to Home Alone, or a second sequel to Home Alone, going straight to video, you're kind of like, yeah, I'm sure it's better than the first two. And having watched it last night, I have to agree with Roger Ebert on this particular point. I think that overall, if you're judging this movie by sheer entertainment value and like hijinks going on and things happening on screen, it's the best Home Alone of the first three. And I've only seen 1, 2, and 3 at this point. So it kind of makes me interested to see, the next one that comes after this. So if I find that, maybe I'll buy it and review that at whatever point. But starting off the review, I do agree with that. I think it is the best of the first three, better than 1 and 2. When the movie started, it starts with this kind of goofy, stupid, like, conspiratorial, like, ooh, this bad guy is just trying to get a hold of this microchip to make missiles be able to, not be deflected, whatever, some bullshit, just like, I was kind of like, oh, even though I haven't seen Spy Kids, it just kind of makes me think like, oh, putting all this like espionage and all this kind of, missile shit into a kids movie is just stupid. But it's not really about, I mean, they just it's not about that. I mean, it is about them trying to find this, chip, but once you get past that kind of stupid, intrigue, whatever, industrial, I don't know what the term is for it, but the intrigue kind of, bad guy intrigue at the beginning and stuff, you get past that, and they basically put this microchip, they transport it, the way they transport it into the States or whatever is, they put it in a remote control car so they can get it through the customs and the airport and stuff like that. So when they get into the airport, some woman takes, they put the car in this bag, and this old woman has this bag that's similar, and they get switched, and then basically these four, which are these people there by the, their faces, you can't really tell any of them by those pictures, but these four, instead of two burglars, you got these four criminals who, who are the criminals in this movie. So they're basically tracking down, once they realize that they accidentally got their bag switched at the airport, and they're like, oh gosh, we gotta track down this chip or we're dead or whatever. Long story short, I mean, basically, the movie is like, it's like an hour and 40 minutes long or something like that. And basically, once you get past that stupid airport scene at the beginning, and for my money, this movie really, I mean, it just keeps going. It doesn't really let up. Unlike Home Alone, like the first movie, maybe even the second one, where, in my opinion, the first, I don't know, first hour of Home Alone is kind of just filler in a way, just to get to the, the last third of the movie with the, them trying to get in and him setting the traps for them. This movie is like constantly stuff going on. I mean, there's this really cool action scene, where with this remote control car, he puts a video camera on top of, and so he can, actually watch it on the TV and see where he's, driving the car into the house. The bad guys have like bought, and I don't know, they set up, I don't know if they bought or leased a house right nearby, and they set up some kind of headquarters there so that they can work out of to try to find, because the chip has to be in one of these houses, and the kid sneaks a RC car into this house, with a video camera on it so he can see. And this scene is just like better than anything. This isn't even the end scene. This is better than anything that was in any of the first two Home Alone movies, just with this RC car and the stuff they get away with, and the stuff they pull off. And the idea is, it should be noted that this movie, just like I think the first two, was actually written. I was surprised to see that this movie is actually a John Hughes production. And then I was like, oh gosh, he wrote it. And I'm like, poor guy slumming it. And then it's just like, it turns out to be, really kind of a competent and an interesting premise. Now, one of my problems with the movie is like the characters, the kid, take them or leave them. I mean, obviously coming off of two Macaulay Culkin movies, the kid is going to be, leaves a little bit to be desired, I guess, just because we're used to Macaulay Culkin. Not to say that the kid isn't good. I mean, he's fine for what he is, I guess. The parents, same thing with the parents. Oh gosh, it should be mentioned that there's a very young, like prepubescent or maybe just approaching pubescent Scarlett Johansson as one of this lead kid's siblings, a sister. She doesn't play a very big part in the movie. Either does his older brother. They're kind of never home. Imagine that in a Home Alone movie. But there's a lot going on in this movie, and it's cool to have like a female, one of these bad guys is a bad girl. She's not very sexy there, but it's cool to have like a sexy, female bad girl. She's mostly always wearing like tight, fitting like legging jogger kind of pants, so she's really kind of cute and sexy. And the irony about this movie is that they did Home Alone, obviously, and then Home Alone 2, and then Charlie Band. I actually reviewed this movie on this channel. Feel free to check out my review. Charlie Band, with his Moonbeam label for kids, actually did a movie, I think in '93, called Remote, which in a way, I felt, and probably mentioned in my review, was a kind of a rip-off of Home Alone with a cool element added to it, with these remote control cars and stuff, which obviously is something that a kid or boy kids are going to really like. And, well, not leaving out girl kids, but kids in general are going to really like, this remote control stuff. And the irony about Home Alone 3 is it's like, okay, so Remote might be kind of ripping off Home Alone 1 or 2, and then Home Alone 3, I don't know if it's kind of ripping off Remote. I don't know if, if John Hughes saw or knew anything about Remote or whatever, but just by chance, it did come out after Remote, so it is kind of ironic that it's just kind of like, that doesn't really happen, or at least not a lot that I've seen, where a movie will be a movie and then something will rip it off, and then a sequel to that original movie will kind of do what the ripoff did, whether it's by, intention or not, is kind of interesting, kind of funny. So in my opinion, unlike the first movie, by the time you get to the part where, the kind of the grand finale where they actually realize that the chip is in this kid's house and they have to break into the kid's house, it's like you've already had your fill of fun and hijinks and action scenes with it. I can't express enough how surprised with that action scene with the RC car was, because not only does he go in like the house, the bad guys end up seeing it, and then they end up chasing the car, and the scene, the kind of the action scene goes on outside, and they're chasing the car and the RC car, and it's just like unbelievable. So this movie has just got so much more actual like entertaining stuff than the first two movies, probably even combined. And not only that, but the actual end scene where the famous end scene where the kid actually booby traps the house to to thwart these four bad guys is better than anything in the 1 or 2, and probably better than 1 and 2 combined. And it's just like the stuff that John Hughes thought of, like, just I can't even. There's so much of it I can't really even say anything specific. Oh, another thing before I forget to mention, he's got this really cute rat pet that he keeps in this freaking, I think it's like an old camera case or something like that, that I think it's a male rat, but I think he calls it a girl name. And then if for you parrot people, you parrot fans, there's a parrot in there. There's just so many little details about this movie, and the RC car scene like in the middle of the movie is great. The end scene, where he's trying to, clobber and keep these 4 criminals from entering. The house is great. I want to say that I don't know if it's true or not, but I felt like even though there's a lot of hijinks shit and stuff going on with, you know, traps and stuff, I felt like in a way that maybe there were complaints after Home Alone 2. I feel like Home Alone 3 isn't necessarily as violent. Maybe I'm just so desensitized in the 21st century that it didn't seem violent to me. I don't know, but he might have done these, you know, certain traps and stuff that weren't necessarily as violent, more funny and stuff. Like, no, I guess some stuff was violent, but I was completely surprised. I thought I'd put this in and roll my eyes the whole movie, and it turns out it's better than 1 and 2. And it's just like, wow, so, you know, great purchase on my part, $2 purchase on Home Alone 3. It's really crazy because, you know, as you know, I just reviewed Chud, the movie and the Blu-ray. And what's crazy about Chud is it features, you know, John Hurt and Daniel Stern, which would both go on to be in Home Alone. And then when this movie started during the credits, I freaking completely lost it when the credits were rolling, and it shows Christopher Curry, and I'm like, no frickin' way. And then later on in the movie, like halfway through the movie or whatever, he plays like an FBI agent or some FBI bigwig or something like that. And later on when they show him, I'm like, it's him, and it's just like, oh my god. So 3 people in Chud ended up being in, you know, Home Alone, and it's just like, it's so crazy because the first, you know, 2 people are from Chud are in Home Alone, and then you got a sequel, and then the third one you got this other guy from Chud who was a main player in Chud who ends up in Home Alone 3. It's just unbelievable. One of the, you know, in closing, one of the things that really added to the end of the movie, and it should be noted that this is, you know, takes place in Chicago. I don't know where it was filmed, but it looked like it was filmed someplace in the Midwest because it looked like real winter, which was great. I think it was in January though, so it wasn't like Christmas, which was kind of cool. But I mean, it was January and people still had like Christmas trees and lights and shit up, which was kind of cool. But you could definitely see like people's breaths, and it looked like genuine winter and stuff like that. And one of the things that I was really impressed by, because it must have taken a lot more work to do than it would to not do, is the very end of the movie when, you know, they were trying to break in and stuff like that. During the whole, you know, bad guys trying to break in and stuff, there was like this winter storm. So not only during all of the action of the hijinks of, you know, the kid thwarting their attempts to get in the house, you have to have it be like snowing in every single shot. And it's just like, I give them props for doing that because it adds atmosphere, it adds to the winter atmosphere and the effect of the movie. And how much more work that is to have to be snowing in every shot, you know, compared to not having it be snowing in every shot. And then sometimes it looks like real snow, and I just, you know, maybe it was just because I went into this movie with such low expectations, but I came out at the end of the day, it was just like, holy cow, that's really cool. So I'm actually giving this more stars than I gave 1 or 2. I'm actually going to go 3 stars, 3 out of 4 stars for Home Alone 3, unbelievably enough. I think it went straight to video, but this is something that I just, you know, obviously shrugged off as being, gosh, this is probably just sucks, you know, ever since it came out. And now having seen it, I'm just like, wow, just because something goes straight to video doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be garbage, because in my opinion, and also apparently Roger Ebert's opinion, this is better than the first 2 big movies that were in the theater. So I guess that pretty much does it for my Home Alone 3 review. Very surprised by how this movie turned out, and I kind of like the fact that it took place in January instead of, you know, doing a Christmas thing again, but still keeping with the winter, you know, theme of Home Alone. I don't know if, you know, the rest of them do that or not, but you know, the kid, you know, you tend to want to be hard on the kid because you're so used to Macaulay Culkin. I should say in closing that the kid did fantastic. He seems really, really young, and he did, you know, he did really good, so I don't want to badmouth the kid too much. The kid was fine. It's just like when you're used to Macaulay Culkin, it's kind of hard to, you know, do a switcheroo. It'd be interesting to know, like, if he was in the 4th one or not. I don't know anything about the, you know, 4th, or I don't know how many more there are, if there's a 5 or what, but now I'm kind of interested to see 4. So thank you very much for watching my review of Home Alone 3, and as always, we'll catch you next time.